Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad-gita, Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action, and Krishna Consciousness, text number 13. Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dware Pare Dehi Naiva Korvana Karyan Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dware Pare Dehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan Mani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dware Pare Dehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan Karmani Manasa Sarva Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dware Pare Dehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan Sarva Karmani Manasa Yasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dware Pare Dehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan Naiva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dware Pare Dehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dware Pare Dehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan Sarva all Karmani activities Manasa by the mind Sanyasya giving up Aste remains Sukham in happiness Vasi one who's controlled Naiva Dware in the place where there are 9 gates Pure in the city Dehi the embodied soul Na never Eva certainly Korvan doing anything Na not Karyan causing to be done. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Please repeat. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Purport. The embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body, or the figurative city of body, are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position, thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes the Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life, in which his determinations are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are mentioned as follows. Naiva dware pare dehi, hangso le layate bahi, vashi sarvasya lokasya, stavarasya tirasya sha. Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of a living entity, is the control of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus, and the genitals. The living entity in his conditioned stage identifies himself with the body. When he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. Shveta Svatara Upanishad. Therefore, a Krishna-conscious person is freed from both the outer and inner activities of the material body. So the text again. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham nava dvare pare dehi naiva korvan karyan. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. First, we should define what Krishna consciousness means. We hear when the embodied soul becomes Krishna conscious. So what does that mean? It means the first thing we're supposed to become conscious of is the philosophy. Because without becoming conscious of the philosophy, then we're completely unconscious. The philosophy begins with understanding that Krishna exists philosophically. For instance, the fact that we all had a father and mother, and our fathers and mothers had a father and mother, and we trace it back, then we can understand, just as everyone that we know of within our family line was a person, so the original father and mother of everyone is also a person. Now, if someone doesn't accept that logic, then what do they mean by logic? So, philosophically understanding, for instance, in the Brahma Samhita it says, it's chaksha esha savita sakala grahanam rajasamasa suramurti yashesha teja yasya gaya brahmati kalasamrita chakro govindam adi purusham tamahan bhajami. That Lord Brahma, who's supposed to be the engineer of the universe, he mentions that when he sees the sun, that his conclusion is that it's amazing that the sun exactly rises at a certain time and it sets at a certain time. Predictable for millions of years. We don't know what we're going to do 5 hours from now, but we can know what the sun's going to do in 1,000,000 years from now. We don't know we know that this watch that I have is not going to last for 100 years. And yet all the watch is trying to do for all this engineering by so-called intelligent persons is it's trying to measure the movements of the sun. So what is the quality of the engineer who's having a much better mechanism called the sun, moves much more with much more precision than any watchmaker can make a watch? So how can we assume that this watch came about by accident and no one created it? So we see something more precise, more grand, more wonderful than a watch, then we have to assume that the person who made it must be much more wonderful than any watchmaker we know. So this appeals to our intelligence. So the first thing we have to do is get information and then have it appeal to our intelligence. If we just reject it, as it says, agyas chasridanascha samshayatma vinashiti nanyam lokasti naparo nasukam samshayatmanaha. So Krishna says, agyas, ignorant people, agyas chasridanascha, and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures, they go to ruin and perish. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. In other words, there are people who have no idea of what we're talking about, nor do they care. They're called agya. They have no idea about, even they can dispute what we're saying because they don't even care about hearing what we say. So they're like animals, according to the Bhagavad-gita. We can call one of the birds or into this room, and he can hear the Bhagavad-gita class, but it's not what he's putting his attention on. He couldn't care less. Others, they have ashradadana. They don't really have real faith. They believe that there's a book called the Bhagavad-gita or other Vedic literature, but they don't really have any faith in it. There are others who have faith in the Vedic literature, but they don't really believe that they're supposed to do anything about it. Others who try to do something about it, they try to live according to the Vedic culture to some degree or another, but they have absolutely no faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they're all considered to be faithless persons. And the worst of those are those who have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever. They're completely like animals. If they don't have faith in Krishna, then their faith is either eating, sleeping, mating, defending, or maybe liberation. Oh, actually, if they have no faith in Krishna, they have the Vedic literature, then they're just interested in eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So that's called using our intelligence to try to ascertain what's true, what's not true. And the ultimate conclusion of that, sambandha, is that Krishna is the proprietor of this world. And being the proprietor, we have an obligation, abhideya, to utilize the energy in Krishna's service. Otherwise, then we're put into the prison called material identification. Krishna Bahir Mukha Bhagavanchitare. Maya Krishna Bahir Mukha Bhagavanchitare. Nikatasta Maya Tare Japitiya Dare. And Maya is right there. And how do we know that we're being chastised by Maya? Because we're put into the material concept of life. And we're forced to act to gratify our senses and our mind. That's what our penalty is. Now, if we agree to act, that Krishna is actually the proprietor, and we find out what Krishna wants us to do, the next thing is, why are we doing it? Do we want something from Krishna? We don't want to be chastised by Krishna. Is that the aim of life? The ultimate aim of life is to not get chastised by Krishna or by his illusory energy. That's called liberation, mukti, or moksha. But the actual aim is bhakti, or love, because Krishna is the most lovable. He's the source of everything, including the tendency to love. So he has unlimited ability to love, and we have a little bit of ability to love. So if we actually want to find out what love is, then we have to find out from Krishna and his devotees. So that's all called buddhi, which Krishna consciousness is called buddhi yoga. We're supposed to use our intelligence to understand these different stages of sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. What is the reality of this world we're living in? how we should act here and what the goal of acting that way is. To accept that there is a God, and this is His kingdom, and we're servants, and that we should serve Him appropriately to develop love for Him. Now, tad buddhiyas tad atmanas, next thing is to actually put our minds on Krishna. So here it mentions sarva karmani manasa, that it controls his nature and mentally renounces all action. So this is mentioned throughout Bhagavad-gita. Apuryamana machala pratishtam samudram apa pravishanti advat tadva kama pravishati sarve sashanti matnoti nakama kami. The person is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is always being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So here's where our responsibility begins. That we have to be able to discriminate between what's a spiritual desire and what's a material desire. Otherwise, there can be no progress. Vihaya kamayak sarvam pumam sharati nispriha nirmamo nirhankara sashanti madhigachiti. Vihaya kama, a person who gives up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, gives up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So this is the beginning of spiritual life, to be able to discriminate what is a material desire and what is a material desire. What is my false ego and what is my real ego? What do I actually own here and what has been given to me to be utilized in Krishna's service? What is an actual desire for sense gratification and what is just just regular desires? So many desires. And then what is a spiritual desire? And then it says controlling one's nature. Controlling one's nature is that we're being offered so many different ideas, so many different feelings, so many different conceptions, and if we don't choose something on the higher level, because that's what we're being presented with options by our mind and senses and our intelligence. So if we don't choose, and the false ego also, so if we don't choose something higher, then there's no question of controlling our nature. We become subjected, we get carried away by our conditioned life. So that means beginning with hearing, and then understanding, then accepting, then we can control our nature when the options come. We can either identify ourselves with our false ego and think that my business should be to gratify my senses right now, or we can identify ourselves as Krishna's servants and then try to figure out what Krishna wants me to do and desire to do that. That's called controlling one's nature. And the result should be, if we accept everything here belongs to Krishna, and Krishna has a mission. It's not like everything we do, Krishna wants us to do. That we figure out what I want to do, and then I do it for Krishna. And hopefully Krishna wants me to do that. That doesn't work that way. No, we have to find out what Krishna wants us to do, and Krishna is more than willing to tell us what he wants us to do if we're prepared to go through the sacrifice and the procedure to find out, beginning with humility. As soon as we think, I know exactly what Krishna wants, we don't even know Krishna, how can we know what he wants? We hardly have any experience with Krishna, and yet we know everything about what he wants us to do. Right? And therefore one has to humbly search through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. We have to know what Bhagavad-gita is. We have to know what the actual sadhu is, what an actual guru is, and what they're telling us to do according to Shastra, because the basis of everything is Shastra, according to what time, place, and audience. And then when it's clear, investigating that, when we're absolutely sure that this is what Krishna wants us to do, then we do it with determination to please him. And if we're not sure, and we do it anyhow, that's called whimsical. It means we don't really care what Krishna wants. We don't want to go through the trouble of figuring it out. It's just too difficult. So Krishna, here I go, ready or not, this is what I'm going to do. And if you don't like it, well, anyhow, you're up there, we're down here, so what? Therefore, we go through the process. We choose what Krishna wants us to do. That's called controlling our nature. Because Maya is going to say, well, what are you going through all this trouble? You got to read these books every day, this boring philosophy, to find out what Krishna wants you to do. Come on, this is, you got so many things to do. Life is short. Besides that, you're not a philosopher. You don't know Sanskrit. You got so many things to do. How can you go through these books? They're boring anyhow. They keep on saying the same thing. You're not your body. Krishna is God. I know the whole philosophy. And therefore, we don't go through the process. And therefore, we don't identify everything here as being belonging to Krishna. Sure, Krishna, it's all yours. Whatever is not mine is yours. And we don't really thoughtfully approach either guru or sadhu. Are there sadhus in the movement? Some people don't even think there's gurus, but to speak of sadhus. And is there Shastra? Oh, this is so boring. It's not up to date anyhow. No, we have to go humbly, submissively, go through, investigate the best we can, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and then when things are clear, then we can act for Krishna. And unless we're humbled, unless we realize that we have a problem, and what is the problem? We think we're this body. Does anyone here not think they're their body to one degree or another? That I'm completely free, whether I die today or die tomorrow, or I get sick, or it doesn't matter because I'm not the body. I already read that. I know that I'm not the body. I know everything. I'm not afraid of death. And someone holds a gun to your head. Oh, really? Oh, well, suddenly you become afraid of death. Otherwise, all these people talk about, I'm not afraid of death. So why do, when they cross the street, would they look both ways? They're not afraid of death. Why don't they just blindly go across the street and if a car hits them, so what? They're not afraid of death. They know they're not their body, right. Therefore, one should go through the process. And what is the process? What is it? And one will naturally think about Krishna. If one accepts everything here as Krishna's energy, it all belongs to Krishna, and I'm doing things to please him, according to his authorities, and I'm doing it just to please, and then one will naturally think about Krishna. And that's called Krishna consciousness. At first, one may think about Krishna sometimes, as it says, and then thoughts of Krishna will come more consistently, and more one will be able to enter into remembering Krishna's forms and his devotees' forms, that Krishna's rushing, he's coming home, and he's rushing to greet Mother Jasoda, who has her arms out, Krishna has his arms out, a cow is by Krishna's side, the cowherd boys are on the wall, 3 of them, one of them is looking at Krishna as he's running towards his mother, and there's 3 gopis on the stairs of the palace, and one of them is Shrimati Radharani, and the others are probably Mother Vishaka and Lalita, and they're holding presentations for Krishna, and there's a bird in the sky, and there's a peacock in the background, and that's called Krishna consciousness, thinking about Krishna and his devotees and their pastimes. And at first one thinks about Krishna sometimes then it becomes more consistent, then one can actually visualize within one's heart what's going on, and one can actually feel what's going on. And eventually one can feel the exchanges of feelings between Krishna and his devotees, until that happiness and pleasure become so much, the absorptions become so much, that practically speaking, one is actually in the path of Krishna's pastime. And then one realizes one can actually eventually feel one's own relationship with Krishna. So that's called Krishna consciousness. But unless we go through the stages, then we won't get to the goal. It doesn't happen just by hoping it's going to happen. Oh, Krishna, give me your mercy, so tomorrow I become a gopi. It doesn't work like that. One has to go step by step through the actual process, but unless we know what the process is, we're not going to go through this step-by-step process to get there. And it's explained in many different ways in Bhagavad-gita. That Vidya Vinaya, Krishna says, just go through a few of the verses. Yesham's Gyanena tutaraganam yesham nashitamatmanaha tesham adityavaj gyanam prakashiti tatparam. For one, however, one is enlightened by the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Tad buddhiyas tad atmanas tad nishtas tad parayanaha gachatnyana pana avritim gyanani dukta kalmasha. Oh, one's intelligence, one's faith, one's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith, one's refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes cleansed of all misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of self-realization. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmanika Vihastini Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshana. And what does a person see who's completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness like that? Called Nishta. He sees with an equal vision the learned and gentle Brahmin, the cow, the dog, the elephant, and the dog eater. In other words, he sees that everyone is Krishna's eternal servant, and Krishna as Paramatma is guiding all living entities. Is that the end of? No, that's the first stage. Ihaya teras jita sargo, yesham samye samanmanak, nidosham hi samam brahma, tasma brahmani tesita. Such a person, ihaya tera jita sargo, one who is absorbed in such a vision of equanimity, he's already conquered the conditions of birth and death. He's flawless like Brahman, and thus he's already situated in Brahman. And then, naprari shat priyam prapya, no dvijat prapya priyam, stira buddhira samudo brahmavid brahmani sitaha. Then one can advance to the platform of naprari shat priyam prapya. One who's not elated when he attains something pleasant, nor becomes depressed when he gets something unpleasant. Who is self-intelligent, unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is said to be situated in transcendence. So then it deepens, that to the point of not only equanimity towards others, but towards all situations. He doesn't need anything, he's not unhappy when he loses something. He's self-intelligent because he's in contact with the super soul. Unbewildered. Nothing bewilders him anymore. He knows that Krishna's in control. He knows that everyone is Krishna's servant. Nothing's happening by accident. And he's situated in self-realization. And what is the result? What is the next stage? Because there are many stages. Vayasvasheva saktatma vidyatmini sukham. So Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukhamakshayam Ashnute. Such a person is situated in trance, is unattracted to material sense pleasure, and is always enjoying the pleasure from within. And this way the self-realized soul enjoys unlimited happiness because he concentrates on the Supreme. So the whole thing, seeing Krishna within our heart, remembering Krishna's devotees, remembering their qualities, their pastimes, and feeling what Krishna is feeling to some degree or another, feeling what his devotees are feeling, the devotion, the love, the consciousness, their emotions. That's possible to feel that when actually we can concentrate on Krishna. These things will come too. Is that the end? No. Yehi samsparshita bhoga dukkha yone evate adyantavante kontiya nate shuramate buddha. Such a person is not attracted to material sense pleasure because he knows that such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man doesn't delight in them. Krodha karma sakyoktinaiva yakshodum prakshariri mokshara karma krodha bhavan vegam suyukta sakasikinara. One who can tolerate the urges of the senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is a yogi and he is happy in this world. So again, we're back to not getting carried away by our senses. So even when we're meditating on Krishna, but still the senses are going to distract us. Karma, kama, and krodha, attachment and aversion. So we have to continuously learn tolerance even when we're beginning to become conscious of Krishna. Because we have a whole set of desires and a whole set of frustrations. They're constantly going to appear. We constantly have to practice tolerance of our misconceptions, of our desires, or our feelings, etc. Yon tak sukha tararamas tatantir jota evaya sabrahma yoga yuktama sukamakshanayam ashnute. One whose happiness is within, who is active within, who rejoices within, and whose inward, and his aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He's liberated in the Supreme and ultimately attains the Supreme. So he's liberated. So he's at the stage of Nishta, he's going towards Ruchi and Asakti, taste for Krishna consciousness, but he's not quite there yet. And then Labhate Jnana Nirvana, Labhate Brahma Nirvana, Rishya Shinakarma Shaha, Shina Chayo Yatatmana Sarabhuta Hite Rata. One who's beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who's always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, who is free from all sins, achieves liberation of the Supreme. So he's getting there. He's not seeing men and women anymore. He's seeing Krishna as eternal servants and acting that way. He knows there are women, there are men, he knows there are animals, but he knows ultimately that they're all acting in Krishna's direction. He's less and less desirous of material sense gratification. Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatichetasam avito brahmanirvanam vartate viditatmana. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized and self-disciplined, constantly endeavoring for perfection, are sure of liberation of the Supreme in the very near future. So it's a refinement of Krishna consciousness constantly. Accepting devotional service more and more consistently and with more and more enthusiasm, giving up other activities, other desires. So this is a refinement that goes on constantly in our progress in Krishna consciousness. And then ultimately this verse, which is only the 5th chapter, Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarva loka maheswaram suridam sarva bhutanam gyatvamam shanti richite. He knows that Krishna is the controller. He's given up the idea, I'm the controller. Big step. He knows Krishna is the enjoyer. He's giving up the idea, I'm going to enjoy separately from Krishna. He knows that Krishna is the real friend. He's given up the idea that I'm going to become the savior, or I have something special to give to people other than to Krishna. Let Krishna be the enjoyer. Let Krishna be the controller. Let Krishna be recognized as the real friend of everyone. Then one can go on to the next chapter, which will more or less say the same thing in a different way, that's all. Every chapter says the same thing, but in a slightly different way, with a slightly different emphasis. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes. Do we have a microphone? Here's a microphone. No, there's a microphone here. There's a microphone. She has a microphone. She has the microphone. He has it.
Hare Krishna. Because you said this Vidya Vinaya Sampana, this verse is Nishta.
Yeah.
So does someone who is on this stage actually see the super soul, or he is more like Shastra Chakshus, she understands the...
It doesn't say anything about the super soul. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastane Shuni Chaiva Swapaki Cha Pandita Samadarshana. He sees the learned and gentle Brahman, the cow, the elephant, the dog, all with an equal mind. So his intelligence has brought his mind to the point he understands that Krishna, there's a soul and a super soul. It doesn't say he sees them. Anything else? Yes.
Does one's Swarupa comes on Prema Bhava, or which stage?
You mean to actually know who you are? That's at the very end of a sakti, because everything is a continuum. The beginning stage is a bhava. Yeah, because if you know who you are, then you feel who you are. But until we come to the stage of bhava, our feelings are mixed. So we're not really quite sure what our real feelings are till they manifest.
And then in Sathika Rasa the bhava develops.
What's that?
Then the feelings of Sathika Rasa actually.
Yeah, of course. Then when we actually feel our who we actually are, then we know what rasa we're in. That's who we are. Anything else? Yes. Give her the, here.
Thank you very much for the lecture. My question is, does Sri Krishna have a certain special life path that he wants for each and every one of his devotees?
Life path? He wants us to get up early in the morning.
No, a special life path for every devotee, in a sense that he wants me and her and this Prabhu to live a special life path.
Every life is
planned out for us as devotees.
Well, we got a body, so generally it's the women who get pregnant and families have children. There are certain general things, but it's not like Krishna is like dictating in that we have no free will. And Krishna says, well, go this way. We go, I don't want to go that way. You got to go that way. No, I don't. I'm sorry. No, it's not like that. We have our free will. You don't have to get a family. You don't have to get somebody. We have so many choices.
Thank you. But at any point, whatever we choose, we can, at the end, in one moment of our lives, choose to really surrender,
Well, no, it's a process. It's called Sharanagati. Accepting things that are favorable first, giving up things that are unfavorable. Then faith will develop, the Krishna will maintain and protect us. We can work according to that. Then we'll always have no interest except for Krishna's interest. We'll always feel meek and humble. So surrender is a gradual process.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hvala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
get this as well.